Okay. Good afternoon, and welcome to our Glo-Bus final presentation. We are the Dapper Dinosaurs, made up of team members Caitlin Bankovich, Taylor Boskar, John Contis, Keaton Jennings, and Dominic Mine.
So for the trends in the company's annual total revenues, so in our total revenues between both AC cameras and the UAV drones, our company has been performing very well due to the increases in revenues over a 9-year period. And as you can see on the graph, our UAV drone revenues increased at large during year 9, and also it's been steadily increasing too. So our AC camera revenues have increased over the past 9 years, but a bit of a slower rate than our UAV drone revenues. You can click the next slide. Yeah. So for our annual earnings per share, we were pleased to see a lot of the continuous increase from years 5 to 10, but we were really strived to bring it up between years 10 and 14, which is exactly what our company did. So in the past 9 years, we have been able to increase our EPS by approximately $14, which is something that we will continue to work on, but also we are very extremely proud of. And our annual return on equity investment. So our annual return on equity investment grew very slowly, as you can see on the graph. We were able to really step it up in the past 3 years. So once we reached a 50% return on equity around year 12, we were almost able to double our return in the next 2 years, which speaks a lot about how much our company has been growing and improving. And with our annual credit rating, as you can see on the graph, we strive to earn an A+ rating. We were very satisfied with our ability to remain financially responsible for the past 5 years. While starting up the company, credit ratings can be one of the toughest areas due to the fact that funds and loans are usually associated. So while we see a dip down to the A- status in year 14, we have set a goal to have it back up to an A in the next 2 years.
With our trends in the company's year-end stock price, they're very similar with our other targets. Our stock price has continued to increase at a positive rate, and then especially so within the last 3 years. If this trend continues, within the next 5 years, we have a lot of potential to see the stock price go to over $600. Our image rating, it took a hard hit from year 7 to 9, but we were able to bounce back after year 9 and continue to improve our image rating up until year 12. With a slight decline in year 12, we were still satisfied with keeping our image rating above 75 for year 13 and 14, though. Our strategic vision pretty much revolves around providing the best value camera for customers all over the world. We aspire to be the industry leader in the camera market, and we rely on our core principles of quality and affordability to get us to the top. Our vision is to establish a worldwide brand renowned for excellent products, customer service, and for leading the market. And as you can see, our performance targets are still projected to continually increase if we were to go on and play more rounds. Our earnings per share will steadily increase over the next few years, return on equity reaching up to 89%. Our credit rating will could stay at a solid A. Our image rating we could increase up to 81, and a stock price of up to 360 within just the next 2 years.
All right, so moving on to our competitive strategy in the action capture cameras. So whenever we were going through the simulation, we didn't really have a set strategy. Whenever we were going year to year, we were mainly looking to beat out our competitors. And this is why we kind of mentioned that we do have that opportunistic approach and not really commit to any long-term strategy. We felt that this was the best because there were always gaps that we could find in the other competitors' approaches, and that this was able to help us reach our goal of being the best value and best cost provider. And as mentioned here, the shifting strategy that we utilized was the most effective in gaining competitive advantage, and it eventually got us up to the very top whenever we were fighting against some really strong businesses such as the Fireballs. So next for the UAV drones. So whenever we started out, we didn't have too much success whenever we were trying to move around with prices and trying to find the gap like we were with the AC cameras. So we decided to take a strategy of market share maximization. And we did this by dumping a lot of money into making the entire market aware of our drones, giving discounts to retailers, and really trying to use a search engine optimization to get our UAV drones in front of as many eyes as possible. This ended up working pretty well for us. While we possibly could have done more, what we were able to accomplish, we were happy with, and it helped us eventually win the simulation.
So onto the production strategy. Our manufacturing strategies prioritized avoiding stockouts, which would cause our competitors to gain ground on us. In the early years of the simulation, we opted to pay our workers overtime so we could afford to extend our facilities to meet the increased demand. And per round, we paid our workers significantly higher salaries than the industry average, including annual salary rises, quality benefits, salary programs, attendance bonuses, and best practices training were also given to our staff to help them work more efficiently for us. And we changed our emphasis in the last 2 years to lowering costs by 8% per round. So the finance strategy, we didn't take out any loans or issue any stock because we were secure in our cash flow. We started repurchasing shares in the later rounds of the simulation to optimize both earnings per share and return on equity for investors. After chasing other firms for the bulk of the simulation, we were able to pull clear of our rivals and take the lead. We do not expect dividend changes in the near term for our shareholders, but this may change as sales from AC cameras and UAV drones grow. So our strongest competitor in year 13 for the most of the simulation rounds was the Fireballs. We were constantly trying to predict each other's moves and outdo one another in categories of PQ rating, price, and promotions. This is proven through the strategic group map here with both companies pretty much on top of one another. Companies use various tactics to try to increase their drone sales as seen in the strategic community map report. Our corporation invested in a lot of money on ads and discounts in order to gain as much market share as possible. The All-Stars, who had more market share than us in the previous rounds of simulation, were our biggest competitor for our market share plan. They proposed a lower cost option with a higher PQ rating, but we were satisfied with our position in the market and the revenue we were generating.
So for our plan to outcompete our rivals, our strategy for the AC cameras and UAV drones started out differently at the start, as we've mentioned throughout this presentation, going for the best value with AC cameras and the market share for UAV drones. But as we were able to get more market share and kind of get to the revenue targets that we set, we are able to offer a best value strategy for both markets. And we kind of used this strategy to our advantage by not raising our prices, even if the market kind of went that way, which helped us gain even more market share from the competitors. And with this, it did bring a great deal of trial and error in the first few rounds of the simulation, which had us behind our competitors at the start. But eventually, we are able to find the right strategy to get to finish first. And this was not going with the trends of increasing prices, but finding gaps in the strategies of the other competitors playing the simulation. And as written on the slide here, prices were in response to the competition, and we weren't really trying to maximize profit margins. And it does align with our best value strategy that we pursued in the final rounds and eventually allowed us to win. So some lessons learned. So as you can see, our image rating was not great, and one of our main competitors, the All-Stars, went for the image rating maximization type strategy, which did work for them pretty well, even though they still lost to us. If we were to play this again, we would maximize our spend in the highest demand areas of North America and Europe, Africa. We would do this because the the interest and demand in these markets would lead to higher revenues and be more worth our time. We would start with a clear strategy for all group members to be on the same page from the very start. We were a little jumbled, and that allowed other groups to jump out in front of us, especially the fireballs. In the first few rounds, they're really able to jump ahead and go forward with a strong strategy, which we eventually somewhat adapted to and then found holes in theirs to be able to win. Another lesson learned is buying back the stock as early as possible, as that brought up the return on equity value, and it also helped us bring up the earnings per share value. Next, we were able to find out that if more marketing spend was done for both the AC cameras and UAV drones, that we could bring the price up. And by doing this, we are kind of able to offset price increases by putting marketing spend up to keep the same market share or even gain a little bit of market share each simulation, while also keeping the earnings per share and return on equity at the forefront of our minds. We learned the lesson of using the competitive effort tabs to see what other companies are doing and how to beat them in about the middle rounds. It wasn't really utilized or thought about in the first couple of rounds, but once we really figured out that using a strategy of finding holes in the other companies' type approaches, it would be the best for us. And the final lesson for this slide is increasing the factory size steadily for production instead of having to pay overtime every single simulation year for the workers. And for the second to last slide here, some lessons learned. We learned to not change the product's P&Q rating every year as it drops market share and image rating. Learn to not pull out of any market just to drop the marketing spend to put toward other regions. We made this mistake by pulling out completely of Latin America, and if we had better competitors, we may have lost based off of this decision. And lastly, using our special contract offers to our advantage. We didn't use them in the first couple of years, but whenever we compared with our competitors' discounts, we were able to factor these into our earnings per share and total products sold. And with this comes avoiding stockouts that can come from the higher demand from these contract offers. All right, well, this concludes our presentation. So thank you very much for listening, Dr. Potter. I know you're probably on your 8th one right now. Hopefully we did all right. And if there are any questions that you have for us, please let us know via email. And thank you very much for your time again. It was a great semester. And hopefully talk to you soon.